Okay, so Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Right, look at this now. You remember last week we said, can you just get that door? So remember what we said last week? We said about the animal skin. That if the animal skin is tanned, according to Hanafis, all animal skins can become clean, yeah, through tanning. And we said last week as well that there is no method for tanning which is stipulated by the Sharia. So we can do anything as long as the main thing is to take out the moisture from the skin. That's the first thing. Then we extended that and we said, okay, is there any other way of making the animal skin clean? Not halal, but clean, remember. So we're not going to eat it, we're just going to. So we said, yes, slaughtering as well, because slaughtering achieves that aim. So you see how the Hanafis do it? The Hanafis are creating this usul, this principle, underlying principle, which is that the impurity is due to moisture inside that skin. Have you got that? Now, technically, the animal skin is supposed to be haram, isn't it? It's part of the animal, isn't it? But because the Sharia has exempted the animal skin, we're allowed to go and say that this animal skin is now considered to be clean because of that process. And then, so slaughtering the animal renders the animal clean, but not necessarily halal. Because we can only eat animals that have been stipulated for us by the Sharia. And animals which are predatory animals that have fangs, have claws, they generally are not allowed when it comes to dietary rulings in the Hanafi madhab. But in the Maliki madhab, these kind of animals are permitted. Yeah, they're allowed. Okay, let's go back to this now. Now the next thing that it's going to talk about is, what about animal hair? So the fur, let's say a lion's fur, or its mane, or tiger. What about the ruling of that? Have you got it? So sha'rul mayta wa azmuha tahir. The hair of a dead animal and its azam and its bones are considered to be clean. Yeah, these are considered not halal, but clean. Why is that? Because it all goes down to one thing, and that is that animals are haram for us when it comes to that animal, the part of the animal which contains life. How do we know that? Because the Sharia has told us, if you slaughter an animal, when that blood exits the animal, life no longer remains in the animal. Now the question now comes, how do you know which part of the animal has life, and how do you know which part of the animal doesn't have life? So the way they measure it is by how much would it hurt an animal. So in other words, cutting off the horns of an animal, does it hurt the animal? Not necessarily. Yeah, unless you're cutting a nerve, that's something else. But the bones itself, the horns and the fur, the hair, the wool, all these things do not hurt the animal if they're cut. So that's why they have a rule which is لا يحلها الموت. Death does not occur on these things. So if death does not occur on these things, what happens? These things are considered to be not halal, pure, tahir. So difference, remember that. Yeah, so this is why women having hair extensions from animal's fur, it's fine, totally permissible. And likewise having coats made from wool, yeah, totally permissible. Yeah, and anything else of that sort. Yeah, animal claws, yeah, what are they? Yeah, permissible, the tahir. Likewise animal's teeth, animal skeleton. Does that make sense? Yeah, so these things. Now this is the Hanafi position. The Shafi say no. Yeah, they just say if the animal's haram, everything associated to it is haram. So everyone got that? So sha'rul maytati wa azmuha tahirun. The sha'r of the mayta, the hair of an animal, wa azmuha, and its bones are clean, not halal, but clean. So what does that mean then, clean? Meaning you can pray salat on it or with it, but you can't necessarily eat it. وقال الشافعي رحمه الله نجس. Imam Shafi says no, the animal, fur, hair, whatever, if you can't eat the animal and if it's not slaughtered, it's haram, it's najis. لأنه من أجزاء الميتة, because he says that every single part of an animal, every single part of this haram animal is considered to be maita. Yeah, so whether it's the flesh, whether it's the skin, whether it's the hair, everything associated to it. And the only reason that the skin can be considered to be clean is because of the tanning process. Okay. Walana, and we say annahu la hayata fihima. These two things, bones and hairs of the animal, do not contain hayat, yeah, life. وَلِهَذَا لَا يَتَأَلَّمْ بِقَطْعِهَا, and that's why the animal doesn't feel pain when you cut it. فَلَا يُحِلُّهُمَا الْمَوْتُ, and hence death does not come into these two things. So whether the animal is alive, whether the animal is dead, these things are not considered to be part of the living animal. إِذِ الْمَوْتِ زَوَالُ الْحَيَاةِ, because maut is the absence of hayat. Now look, a very important point here to remember, which is, you know, like if we look in the animal kingdom, there's certain parts of animals that we can use that are clean for us. Like for example, bees, they produce honey, don't they? Where does the honey come from? Inside the bees, in it. But the bee itself is not allowed for us. Yeah, bee itself is not allowed for us. Likewise, silkworm, worms itself, they're not allowed for us. But the silkworm produces this sort of a substance which can be made into silk. And likewise, other animals out there that we're allowed to use in that manner, like for example musk. Musk comes from a deer. Yeah, so that deer, whether you've slaughtered it or you've not slaughtered it, the musk is found inside of a gland inside the animal. So when you slaughter it, you have to tie that gland, otherwise the musk inside the gland, it turns back into blood again. So that's why it's very expensive, very difficult to obtain. So that is clean for us. You can wear it, you can pray salat with it. Does that make sense? So the Hanafis look into this concept and see what they found was the Prophet ﷺ, he used to eat cheese that was gifted to him from Persia. Now at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, Persia was owned by who? Was run by non-Muslims. Non-Muslims, yeah. They were not Byzantines. They were the Ghassanis, the Persians. Yeah. So the Persians used to run it, the fire worshippers basically. So their flesh is not halal for us. The Prophet ﷺ, he said about them, when someone came to him and said, what's the ruling of the Majus? And he said, Sunnu bihim sunnata ahl kitab, deal with them like that you do with the people of the book. Yeah. غَيْرَ آكِلِ لُهُمِهِمْ وَنَاكِهِ نِسَائِهِمْ, apart from marrying their women and eating their flesh, the animals, do everything else how you would do with a Jew and Christian. Does that make sense? Yeah. So in other words, you're not supposed to eat their flesh, but cheese used to come in. Now, how is cheese made? So the way cheese was made in them days was, you used to get a calf, baby calf, that's dead obviously, and then you get the stomach, you cut out the stomach, and you get milk and you fill it with milk, and then you tie it and you leave it hanging in your house. And then you come the next day, this milk has churned and it's become cheese. Yeah, it's become hard. This is how cheese is produced. Inside that, and this cheese, it was called aqit. It was a hard form of cheese. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's not soft. It's like when you bite it, that chalk. That's how hard it is. Yeah, so it's a hard form of cheese. So he used to eat it. Now, obviously, he would know where it came from. He's not gonna. The Prophet ﷺ, if he used to make a mistake in his ijtihad, Allah would correct him. But we know the Prophet ﷺ used to eat this. So how do we understand this then? How is this explained? So from this, Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah has taken out from this, and others have, but I'm just showing us because the Hanafi madhab, that inside the cow's lining of the stomach, there's an enzyme in there. It's called infaha. Yeah, it's called infaha. Rene, what we call Rene. Yeah, so the Rene, what that does is they add it into the milk, and it makes the milk harden at night time. Yeah, when it's left. So therefore, from there they take that inside of a cow or an animal, if there's certain parts of the animal which is not part of the living animal itself, it's like a bacteria or it's like a separate substance from the animal, then that is alright for us. Does that make sense? Yeah, so all these cheeses that are made, a lot of them, they use this kind of method.
So even from a haram animal?
Even from because it's not slaughtered. It's not slaughtered in a halal way, is it? They usually get it from cows or sheep, baby ones. Make sense?
Like, would it be allowed from like a haram animal, like a pig? Because you see pig very.
I don't think they make it from pigs. Yeah, they don't. I don't think it can be made from pig. It's made from cows or it's made from baby goats, like that. And you can Google it. You can YouTube it. You'll find it how they make it. Yeah, the Mongols, they still do that method. There was a documentary I was watching. They still do that method where they get it and they tie it in the house and then just.
So you know what you see on like ingredients, animal rennet.
Yeah, it's fine.
That's fine.
Then it'll be fine. Yeah, but most likely that's what it will be. Yeah, these kind of things. So this is why when people say this product contains animal ingredients, that doesn't necessarily mean it's haram for us, because what they're saying it's taken from an animal. Yeah, and that technically it has to fulfill a certain criteria for it to be haram for us. Make sense? And then the Hanafis have this other thing which is, like a part of an animal which is haram for us to consume, but it goes through a process of change. So much change that it doesn't remain the same thing as it was before. They call this istihala. And they give an example. They say, if you had a donkey, let's say, that died in the street, and it was left there for months and months, and the heat of the sun dried it up so much that it petrified it. It became salt. Yeah, solid. So what would the ruling of that be? So the fuqaha say, because it no longer is the same chemical compound that it was before, it's now become salt. Now it's halal to eat, even if it happened with a pig, if it happened with any animal. Does that make sense? So the scholars have this concept called istihala. So the istihala, and this is why sometimes when you have certain ingredients and it goes through a chemical process in factories, if that process goes to such a degree that you would say it's more than 50%, some say more than 60, 70%, 80%. If it goes through such a process that it changes most of it, then now it's in a new ruling now. It's not haram anymore. And they get this from vinegar. Yeah, because vinegar was consumed by the Sahaba radiallahu anhu. Prophet ﷺ consumed it. Where did vinegar come from?
The stuff like white wine vinegar and spirit vinegar and stuff.
All fine according to Hanafis. Yeah, so because it comes from alcohol, but the alcohol has gone through a process of changing, there's still going to be some element of alcohol left in there, isn't it? Not absolutely change. Yeah, but that's fine, they say. So have you got that? So this is why, this kind of thing, food and these kind of topics, people get confused. And I talked to Mufti Safraz about this, because he's expert in food. He's done a lot of research. That's his specialty. So he was saying that like ingredients, because now they always use new ingredients and things like we've never heard of before. So you always like shellac they use, which is a type of beetle kind of insect that's found in Thailand and these countries, Cambodia, and they excrete this sticky substance, and that sticky substance is actually used on a lot of fruit. They cover fruit with it in the supermarkets. That's why it's shiny.
But wouldn't it be called najasa, anything that comes out of ground, for example?
Yeah, so technically, that's what it should be, isn't it?
Yeah.
But then when we come across like honey,
Of course,
yeah, honey, and then the silkworm, and then these kind of things, then the question comes that, okay, what things are halal, what things are haram? That's why the fuqaha investigate these things. Make sense? So this is why he said that in these new ingredients that come out, they'll have like, oh, this contains this, and you have to investigate it. Oh, how did they make this? How did they ever think of putting this kind of ingredient in this kind of food? Yeah, and then you got to investigate what process it went through. So he said an easy thing for general public to remember is, if the ingredient is too difficult for you to investigate, like if you read it and it's got too many numbers or stuff, he goes, as long as it hasn't got anything clearly haram, he goes, eat it. He goes, that's the easiest way, because otherwise it becomes too difficult for people, because nowadays the ingredients are just so complicated how they're made. Like for example, they have this a lot of medicines that they make. Even vanilla, the way they extract it, they use alcohol in the process of extracting it. So there's no alcohol in there, but they use alcohol in the process to extract it. So what's the ruling of that then? So there's so many of these things that it becomes difficult for people to be able to live their lives, normal lives. Make sense? Okay, so Anyway, I thought I'd mention that. Next, وَشَعْرُ الْإِنسَانِ وَعَظْمُهُ طَاهِرٌ. The sha'r of insan, the hair of an animal, of a human being, وَعَظْمُهُ, and its bones are clean. Are clean. But that does not mean we're allowed to use it. Remember that. So, like for example, let's say someone's hair fell into a cup of tea. Yeah, fell inside a cup of tea. Happens. And does all that tea become haram now? No, not necessarily. So the hair is clean. And likewise, the bones of human beings. So let's say there's bones of human beings that don't contain any blood or anything, dried up, and they were to fall into water. That water, can you do wudu from there? Can you drink from there? Make sense? Yeah, so that's tahir, that is. However, you're not allowed to use any part of a human being's body.
So hair extensions.
Hair extensions, you're not allowed to use hair extensions. Yeah, because out of karama, honoring the human being. However, those things where the Sharia has given exemption, you can use it. So, for example, like breast milk. So the Quran mentions about, hiring a wet nurse to breastfeed the children. So, in a way, someone might say, well, isn't this like you're paying for the milk? You're using a woman's milk, so you're paying for it, aren't you? So, what the Hanafi say here is, because the asal rule is that it's haram. Yeah. The exemption is istihsan. So in istihsan, you won't be able to extend it to other things. Yeah, so you won't be able to extend it to other things and say, no, you can use a woman's hair, if she gives it to you, you can buy it off her, or her skin, or anything else like that. You wouldn't be able to. You're not allowed to use that.
So same thing like someone dies and say you can have my eyes.
So then the question comes about transplant, human organ transplant. Yeah, so is human organ transplant permissible for this? So a lot of the scholars, they say no, it's not permissible. One of the reasons they say no, it's not permissible, because in the olden days there wasn't a method of, being able to transplant the part of the body onto someone else successfully. That wasn't possible in the past. Yeah, when the scholars used to give their fatwas, that was one possible reason for that. So they said no, you can't. And they even give like examples of, if there's a man, two men, and they're like trapped on a boat or something, and there's nothing to eat, and one of them says, chop my leg off and you eat, let's eat our leg. You can't do that. See, that's not permissible. Yeah. So that wouldn't come under the permissibility of staying alive, doing that. So based on that, they take that and they extend that to organ transplant as well.
Is that, when you say organ transplant, you mean receiving or giving? Oh.
So technically anything wouldn't be allowed.
Oh.
Technically, that's right. However, like modern scholars now, because they've seen this method, they've seen how it works. Now there's a group of scholars who says it is permissible if under strict conditions. Yeah, and the reason they put strict conditions on there, because it might turn into organ harvesting. You don't want that to happen as well, where people are just killing people. People are getting people to just to have these sweat factories. Yeah, what's it called, sweatshops, where they get people, they have people there, and they'll just say, we'll pay for you, and you just give us your liver, give us your kidney. And the people in the world that are dying, they'll do it. Yeah, so then all the ethics, everything goes. So this is why there are strict conditions, but now there are scholars who have given permissibility of under strict conditions now, of giving to someone, and so long as you know that a very high chance that they'll survive, the person will survive. But now, see, there is now alternatives now slowly appearing. For example, like pigs' joints, pigs' limbs, pig's heart, very close to human heart, and it successfully worked for many people. And they're growing it in laboratory as well from stem cells. Yeah, so there are these options available. But like I said, there is a big like ikhtilaf between scholars today. On one extreme, some scholars are totally against it, absolutely. On this other side, you got scholars who give permissibility. Yeah. But the thing is, when it comes to like these fatwas, you don't want to open the doors for other bad things to come. Yeah, so someone might say, well, what's wrong with it? Just changing limbs. This guy's dying anyway. But then you don't know, but maybe that will lead to some, because a fatwa has been given, that will lead to people opening doors for other issues as well. Yeah, so that's something that you don't want to go into. So شعر الإنسان وعظمه طاهر وقال الشافعي. Imam Shafi says no. Hair of a human being and the bones of a human being are impure. لأنه لا ينتفع به. Two reasons. Number one, Islamically, legally, you're not allowed to benefit from any human being's body. As in, like remove it and utilize it. You can't do that. وَلَا يَجُوزُ بَيْعُهُ, and you're not allowed to sell. Yeah, selling any parts of a human body, you're not allowed to do. Yes, you're allowed to sell like a human if it's a slave, okay, or like we said, leasing or hiring a wet nurse to breastfeed a child, that's allowed. But that's because the Sharia has exempted that situation. Yeah, that's why you give that. وَلَنَا, and we say, عدم الانتفاع أن عدم الانتفاع والبيع لكرامته. The reason why the Sharia does not allow benefiting from the animal, yeah, والبيع, and selling, is because of its karama. It's because of its honor. فلا يدل على نجاسته. And when we said before, just because the Sharia has made human body haram for us, that does not indicate that it's impure. Okay, everyone got that?